Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling the global economic outlook.
All right.
Um, trying to figure out where in the world economies are headed.
Yeah.
And for this one, we are using the OECD's Economic Outlook report
Okay.
from December 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty big analysis
Yeah.
covering both OECD members and some
Cool.
key non-member countries.
Yeah. It's a really fascinating report.
Yeah.
What really struck me is that despite all the challenges we've seen recently,
Yeah.
like rising interest rates,
Hmm.
all the geopolitical tensions,
Right.
the global economy is actually showing some real resilience.
Yeah, that's kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
The report projects global growth to be 3.2% in 2024,
Mm-hmm.
and then rising slightly to 3.3% in both 2025 and 2026.
Right.
So what's going on? What's behind those numbers?
Well, a few things are contributing to that, I think.
Okay.
Easing inflation is definitely playing a role. In most major economies, inflation is expected to return to target by late 2025 or early 2026.
Ooh.
We're seeing annual inflation in the G20 countries projected to moderate to 3.5% in 2025
Okay.
and then down to 2.9% in 2026.
Wow.
So that's down significantly from the 5.4% we're seeing in 2024.
Okay, so prices are going down,
Yeah,
but are people actually feeling that? Are they feeling relief yet?
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And that's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Consumer confidence hasn't really caught up to this positive trend.
Oh, interesting.
Remember all those crazy price hikes we saw not too long ago?
Yeah.
It seems like that experience has really made people a little bit wary.
So even if the numbers look good on paper,
Yeah.
it seems like there's kind of a psychological lag
Yeah,
before people are ready to just spend freely again.
exactly.
Okay.
Consumer confidence is influenced by so many factors.
Sure.
Job security,
Mm.
the overall economic sentiment. It's
Right.
not just about what the actual prices are.
Right. It's about how secure people feel.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this backdrop of resilient growth,
Yeah.
but still kind of cautious consumers.
Right.
So what are policymakers doing to kind of navigate all of this?
Yeah. Well,
What's happening with things like interest rates and all of that?
yeah, central banks are in a really delicate position right now.
Yeah.
They're continuing to reduce policy rates in advanced economies. They're trying to find that sweet spot between stimulating growth and keeping inflation under control,
Right.
you know?
But isn't Japan going in a different direction?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They're actually withdrawing accommodation.
Why is that? Why are they doing that?
Yeah, so Japan's situation is a little bit unique.
Okay.
They've been struggling with deflation for years now.
Right.
So their approach has to be a little bit different.
Okay.
It has to be tailored to their specific circumstances.
So it makes sense that they're kind of going their own way a little bit.
Exactly.
What about fiscal policy? What is the OECD recommending that governments do on that side of things?
Well, they're really emphasizing a balanced approach. I think
Wow.
governments need to prioritize debt sustainability. A
Mm.
lot of countries have high debt levels right now,
Yeah.
but they also need to support growth,
Right.
especially in really crucial areas like the
Mhm.
green transition,
Mhm.
supporting aging populations.
Okay.
It's a tough balancing act for sure.
It's like they're walking a tightrope.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but here's something I don't quite understand.
Okay.
Amidst all of this,
Mm-hmm.
the report talks about persistent labor shortages.
Yeah,
Shouldn't more growth mean more jobs?
that's what you would think, right?
Right.
But this is a fascinating paradox.
Okay.
The shortages are concentrated in very specific areas.
Okay.
We're talking about high-skilled jobs,
Okay.
sectors with really demanding conditions,
Mm.
and surprisingly often low pay.
So we're talking healthcare, technology, construction,
You got,
those kinds of fields.
yeah, and there are several reasons for this.
Okay.
Demographic shifts are definitely a big factor.
Okay.
Aging populations, low birth rates.
Yeah.
It means fewer people are entering the workforce.
Right.
And then there's the issue of skills not matching up
Yeah.
with what employers actually need.
Right. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this skills gap is only going to get worse
Mhm.
as technology advances even more rapidly.
Right.
We need a major push for upskilling and reskilling.
So it's not just about creating more jobs.
Yeah,
It's about creating the right jobs.
right.
Yeah.
Jobs that are aligned with what's actually in demand.
In the future.
Exactly.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're building this amazing future city,
Yeah,
but we don't have the construction workers to do it.
that's a great way to put it.
Right.
And then on top of all that,
Yeah.
we have very limited worker mobility. People aren't always willing or able to move to where the jobs are.
Yeah. For
Wait,
lots of reasons.
for all sorts of reasons, yeah.
Family, housing costs,
Right.
all those things.
Exactly.
Okay, so labor shortages are a big deal.
Yeah.
What can be done about it?
Well, the report outlines a bunch of potential solutions.
Okay.
Investing in education and training is a big one.
Yeah.
We've got to bridge that skills gap,
Okay.
but we also need to make jobs more attractive.
Right.
And that means not just focusing on pay,
Yeah.
but also on things like work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
career development opportunities.
So making those jobs more appealing to workers in a more holistic way.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we need to encourage more people to actually participate in the workforce,
Like-
especially women and older workers.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of untapped potential there.
Right.
And immigration can also help address specific shortages.
Yeah.
But we need to handle that carefully, you know, thinking about the social and political aspects.
Yeah, it's not just economics.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered growth,
Yeah.
inflation, policy responses,
Right.
and these tricky labor shortages.
Yeah.
But what about the things that could throw everything off course?
Right.
What are the main risks that the OECD report highlights?
Well, there's several.
Okay.
Elevated geopolitical tensions are a major concern.
Okay.
You know, the evolving conflicts in the Middle East, for example, create a lot of uncertainty.
Right.
And then we can't forget about the potential for rising oil prices.
Yeah.
Renewed energy supply concerns.
Those are still out there.
Oh, yeah, they're still looming.
Okay.
Especially with all the geopolitical uncertainty.
Right.
And then there's trade policy uncertainty as well.
Yeah.
You know, increased protectionism and trade wars could really disrupt things.
Yeah.
And really harm economic growth.
So it's like navigating a ship through a minefield.
Exactly.
Got to be really careful and ready to change course.
Yeah, this is where prudent policymaking is absolutely critical.
Right.
Governments and central banks need to be
Agile.
adaptable.
Proactive. All of that.
Right.
To really manage these risks
Yeah.
and guide the global economy towards a more stable
Yeah.
and prosperous future.
Okay, so we've been talking about the big picture so far,
Right.
but I think it's interesting to also zoom in on some specific economies.
I agree.
You know, the OECD report gives a really detailed analysis of individual countries.
It does.
And I think it would be helpful to get a sense of, you know, how diverse these economic situations actually are.
Yeah. I think that would be great.
Okay, cool. So let's start with Brazil.
Okay.
It's a country that has seen robust growth,
Mm-hmm.
but is also grappling with inflation
Yeah.
and concerns about, you know, keeping its debt under control.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some key highlights from the report when it comes to Brazil?
Well, Brazil's real GDP is projected to grow by a solid 3.2% in 2024.
This is mainly driven by strong job creation
Okay.
and good wage growth,
Mm.
which is really fueling consumer spending.
Okay.
Private investment is also expected to remain strong, although it might slow down a bit over time.
Okay.
This is being helped by favorable financial conditions
What?
and continued interest rate reductions by the central bank.
So what are the potential downsides to all this rapid growth?
Well, inflation is definitely a challenge.
Okay.
It's projected to be around 4.3% in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
A combination of things are driving this,
Okay.
including, you know, volatile food and energy prices,
Mm-hmm.
strong domestic demand,
Okay.
and some lingering supply chain issues.
So it sounds like the central bank has a tough job
Oh, yeah,
trying to control inflation without slowing down the economy too much.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And when it comes to government finances,
Okay.
the report notes that although Brazil has made some progress in reducing its budget deficit,
Okay.
its public debt levels are still quite high.
Yeah.
And this makes it harder for the government to respond effectively to future shocks
Okay.
or to make important investments in things like
Right.
infrastructure and education.
So policymakers in Brazil have a tough balancing act.
They do.
You need to figure out how to keep the economy growing
Mm-hmm.
while also dealing with these concerns about inflation and debt.
Exactly. And this really highlights the importance of structural reforms
Okay.
to make the economy more productive and competitive in the long run.
What does that mean?
Well, these are changes that would make it easier for businesses to operate and grow,
Mm-hmm.
attract investment,
Okay.
and ultimately lead to stronger and more sustainable growth.
So kind of setting the stage for longer term growth.
Exactly.
Okay. Brazil's situation is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now let's switch gears completely and look at Germany.
Okay.
It's facing some serious headwinds right now,
It is.
especially from high energy costs and weak demand for its exports.
Right.
What's the outlook there?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the outlook for Germany isn't as bright.
Okay.
The report projects GDP growth to be just 0.4% in 2024.
Wow, okay.
So that's pretty weak.
Yeah.
This is due to a number of factors all coming together at the same time.
All right, let's break that down a bit.
Okay.
High energy costs must be a major drag on the German economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Germany relies very heavily on energy imports, particularly natural gas from Russia.
Right.
The ongoing geopolitical tensions and the war in Ukraine have pushed energy prices way up. And that's putting a lot of pressure on businesses and households.
It's not just that energy is more expensive.
Right.
It's that there's so much uncertainty about future supplies,
Yeah.
which can really make businesses hesitant to invest and hire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we have weak external demand.
Okay.
Germany is a big exporter.
Right.
So when global trade slows down,
Yeah.
especially in key markets like China, it really hurts their economy.
So high energy costs,
Yeah.
weak demand for exports,
Right.
and a lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty.
That's kind of a perfect storm for Germany.
Yeah, it really is.
So what is the government doing to deal with all these challenges?
Well, the report mentions that the government has implemented a number of measures
Okay.
to soften the blow of these high energy prices.
Okay.
These include subsidies for households and businesses,
Okay.
as well as investments in renewable energy
Mhm.
to try to become less dependent on those imports.
Okay, so those are some steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
But what about the longer term challenges?
Mm-hmm.
What does Germany need to do to become more competitive and get back on track for more sustainable growth?
Yeah, structural reforms are really key here.
Okay.
Germany needs to address some long-standing issues.
Like what?
Like its somewhat rigid labor market,
Okay.
its complex tax system,
Mhm.
and a lack of investment in things like digital infrastructure.
So it's kind of like giving the German economy a tune-up.
Yeah.
Some much needed tune-up.
But these reforms can be tough to implement, right?
They can.
They often involve political trade-offs,
Yeah.
and they might not be popular with everyone.
That's true.
Yeah.
It takes strong leadership
Yeah.
and a willingness to make tough choices
Right.
to push through these kinds of changes.
But without them, it's going to be difficult for Germany to really adapt
Yeah.
to this new reality.
Absolutely.
But-
They need to adapt to be able to achieve their full potential.
All right. We've looked at two very different economic stories now.
Yeah, I have.
Brazil, which is experiencing that strong growth,
Mm-hmm.
but is facing some challenges.
Right.
And then Germany, which is facing these significant headwinds.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our final example.
Okay.
Japan,
All right.
a country that has been battling deflation and a shrinking workforce for years.
Yeah.
What's the latest there?
Well, Japan's economic situation is interesting.
Okay.
It's a real mix of positive and negative development.
Yes. The report projects GDP growth to be 1.5% in 2024,
Okay.
which is actually pretty decent compared to recent years.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah, it is a good sign.
What's driving this growth?
Well, a few things are contributing.
Okay.
The government has launched a new economic stimulus package
Okay.
that includes things like cash handouts to lower-income households,
Mm-hmm.
more energy subsidies,
Okay.
and support for investment in semiconductor production and research and development.
Okay. So trying to really boost certain industries.
Yeah,
Okay. And are they easing monetary policy?
they are gradually.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's some positive signs,
Mm.
but those long-standing issues
Right.
of deflation
Right.
and a shrinking workforce are still a problem.
There's still major concerns.
Major concerns, yeah.
Okay.
Despite the stimulus measures
Yeah.
and easier monetary policy,
Right.
inflation remains very low,
Okay.
far below the Bank of Japan's 2% target.
So they're still kind of stuck in that deflationary trap.
Yeah.
And the shrinking workforce is a real demographic time bomb.
Oh, wow.
Japan has one of the oldest populations in the world.
Yeah.
And this is putting a lot of pressure on their social security systems and the overall economy.
Because it means fewer people working and paying taxes?
Exactly, to support a growing elderly population.
Yeah, that's tough.
It is tough.
So what's the long-term solution for Japan?
That's the big question.
Yeah, how can they escape this deflation and address these demographic challenges?
Well, structural reforms are really essential,
Okay.
but they're very difficult to implement politically.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They involve changes to things like
Yeah.
labor market regulations,
Mm-hmm.
immigration policies, and the social safety net.
So big changes.
Big changes, yeah.
Freaking.
Japan needs to boost productivity,
Yeah.
encourage innovation,
Mm.
and make its economy more attractive to foreign workers.
Okay, so they've got some work to do.
They do. It sounds like Japan has a long and challenging road ahead.
Yeah, it does.
But is there hope?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Japan has a highly skilled workforce,
Mm-hmm.
a very strong technological base,
Yeah.
and a very resilient culture
Okay.
with the right policies and a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
I think they can overcome these challenges
Okay.
and return to a path of sustainable growth.
Okay.
But it's going to require making some tough choices
Yeah.
and adapting to this rapidly changing world that we live in.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a mixed bag for Japan.
Well, that's a good place to wrap up part one of our deep dive into the global economic outlook.
Okay.
We've covered a lot so far. Global trends,
Yeah.
country-specific challenges, and those potential risks on the horizon.
For sure.
But we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
In part two, we're going to delve a little deeper into those labor shortages
Okay.
that we touched on earlier.
Sounds good.
And we'll also take a closer look at those risks and uncertainties that could throw the global recovery off course.
Looking forward to it.
So join us then. Welcome back to our deep dive into the global economic outlook. Last time we left off talking about those persistent labor shortages that seem to be popping up even as the global economy is expected to grow
Yeah.
at a pretty decent pace.
Yeah. It's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it?
It is. You'd think more growth would just naturally lead to more jobs.
You would think that. Yeah. But as the OECD report highlights,
Yeah.
this is one of those cases where the
Okay.
big picture numbers don't really tell the whole story.
Okay.
Remember, these shortages are really concentrated in certain sectors,
Right.
and they're being driven by some pretty powerful trends.
Right. We talk about things like demographic shifts,
Yeah.
the skills gap,
Huh.
and those huge green and digital transformations that are happening across industries.
Yeah, it's almost like the global economy is going through a metamorphosis.
It is like a metamorphosis,
Yeah.
yeah. And just like any metamorphosis,
Yeah.
there are bound to be growing pains
Oh, yeah, for sure.
along the way.
Yeah. And the labor market is really trying to adjust,
Okay.
but it's not a quick process.
Right.
And while that adjustment is happening,
Yeah.
those shortages can actually put a real drag on economic growth.
Because companies can't find the workers they need to
Expand.
and innovate.
If a company can't fill those key roles,
Right.
they can't operate at full capacity.
Right.
They can't develop new products or services.
Right.
They can't compete effectively.
It's like having all the ingredients to bake a cake,
Yeah.
but realizing you're missing eggs.
Uh-huh.
You can't bake a cake without eggs.
No, you can't.
And in this case, the missing eggs are the skilled workers.
You got it.
It's not just about the number of workers.
Right.
It's about their skills and their qualifications.
It's about the quality of the workers.
Yeah. And that's where things get even more complicated.
Yes, it does.
Because the skills that people have don't always match what employers need.
Exactly.
That's that whole square peg round hole situation again.
Yeah, that's right.
And this skills gap is only going to get worse
Yeah.
as technology keeps advancing so rapidly.
It is. And that's why we need this push for upskilling and reskilling.
So it's not just about creating more jobs.
Mhm.
It's about creating the right jobs.
Yes.
Jobs that align with the skills
Mhm.
that are going to be in demand in the future.
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head.
Right.
This requires a real coordinated effort
Okay.
from governments,
Mm-hmm.
businesses,
Yeah.
and educational institutions.
So everybody needs to be on the same page.
Everybody has to work together.
Okay, so what kinds of jobs are we talking about here?
Yeah. So just give you some concrete examples.
Yeah.
Consider the green transition.
Okay.
We're talking about jobs in renewable energy,
Okay.
sustainable agriculture,
Mhm.
energy efficient building construction.
Right.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
These are growing sectors
Okay.
with huge demand for skilled workers.
Yeah, but we need to make sure that people have the training and the qualifications
Right.
to actually step into those roles.
And then you've got the digital transformation as well, which is impacting almost every industry.
Yeah, virtually every industry is being touched by that.
So jobs in software development,
Yeah.
data analysis,
Uh-huh.
cybersecurity,
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence.
Yes.
It seems like the possibilities are endless.
They really are. And these are, high-skilled jobs,
Yeah.
often requiring specialized knowledge and training.
Right.
And the competition for talent in these areas is fierce.
So how do we attract more people to these fields?
Okay.
Is it all about just offering higher salaries? Or is there more to it than that?
Salaries are definitely a factor,
Sure.
but it's not the only thing that matters.
Okay.
We need to also think about job quality.
Yeah.
You know, people are looking for jobs that offer more than just a good paycheck.
What else are they looking for?
They want work-life balance.
Okay.
They want opportunities to advance in their careers and a sense of purpose.
So it's not just about working to live.
Right.
It's about finding work that's actually fulfilling
Exactly.
and meaningful.
Yeah, and this is especially important
Okay.
for younger generations entering the workforce.
Okay.
You know, they're not just looking for a 9-to-5 grind.
Right.
They want to feel like their work is making a difference.
Yeah, they want to be passionate about it.
They want to be passionate about it. Exactly.
So it sounds like employers need to step up their game.
Yeah, they do.
They need to offer more than just competitive salaries
Right.
and really create a workplace culture
Yeah,
that's appealing to workers,
it has to be attractive.
especially younger workers who may have different priorities and expectations.
Different values, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so that includes things like
Yeah.
offering flexible work arrangements,
Yeah.
opportunities for professional development.
And a commitment to social and environmental responsibility.
Yeah, those things matter
All those things.
more and more.
Yeah, okay, so it sounds like a win-win.
I think so.
You know, employers get the skilled workers they need.
Yeah.
Workers get jobs that are fulfilling and rewarding.
That's the goal.
Right. That's what we want.
Well, what about sectors that are already facing really acute labor shortages,
Yeah.
like right now?
Yeah, what can we do about
What
those?
can be done?
In the more immediate term.
Yeah. Well, there are a few things we can explore.
Okay.
One is encouraging greater labor force participation,
Okay.
particularly among groups that have traditionally been underrepresented.
Like, who are we talking about?
So we're talking about women
Okay.
and older workers.
There's a lot of untapped talent there.
A lot of untapped potential there.
Yeah.
But we need to address the barriers
Okay.
that prevent these groups from really fully participating in the labor market.
Like what kinds of barriers?
So things like affordable childcare, flexible work arrangements, and policies that actually promote gender equality.
Yeah. Make it easier for everyone to participate.
Yeah, level the playing field.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's immigration,
Yeah.
which can be a really helpful tool to fill specific shortages.
In the short term, yes.
In the short term.
Yeah, but it's important to remember that immigration is complex.
Oh, absolutely.
And it has social and political dimensions that we can't ignore.
Right. We have to consider those as well.
We need to take a balanced and humane approach,
Right.
one that really takes into account the needs of both immigrants and the countries they're coming to.
It's not just about filling job openings. It's about
It's about helping people
Yeah.
integrate into society and
Yeah.
creating a welcoming and inclusive environment.
right, making sure everyone feels welcome.
Exactly.
To contribute.
Yeah, this means investing in things like language training,
Okay.
cultural integration programs, policies that promote diversity and inclusion.
Okay. So it's about creating that welcoming environment.
It's about creating the right environment for everyone.
Okay. So we've talked about the causes of labor shortages
Yeah.
and some potential solutions. But the OECD report also points to some
Yes.
pretty significant risks
Yeah.
to the global economic outlook.
Right, things that could disrupt that recovery.
Yeah, and make these labor market challenges even tougher to deal with.
Absolutely. They're all interconnected
Okay.
and multifaceted, which makes them even more challenging to navigate.
It's like sailing through uncharted waters
Yeah.
with a storm brewing on the horizon.
That's a good analogy.
Huh.
One of those storm clouds is definitely geopolitical tensions.
Okay.
You know, the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East,
Yeah.
the war in Ukraine, rising tensions between the U.S. and China.
Right.
All of these things contribute to this climate of uncertainty
Yeah.
and instability.
And that makes businesses hesitant to invest and hire.
Exactly. Uncertainty is a major obstacle to economic growth.
Okay.
When businesses are unsure about the future, they're less likely to take risks,
Yeah.
expand operations, or hire new workers.
And it makes consumers nervous, too.
Yeah.
They might cut back on spending,
Yeah, they might hold back.
which can weaken demand
Right.
and slow down economic growth even more.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And all of this is compounded by the potential for rising oil prices
Yeah.
and renewed concerns about energy supplies.
Right. Those are still big wild cards.
big question marks.
Yeah, any disruption to global energy markets could have a real ripple effect.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah,
Higher energy costs push up production costs for businesses,
yeah,
reduce consumer purchasing power,
right.
potentially lead to more inflation.
It's a whole cascade.
It is a domino effect.
And then on top of that, we can't forget about trade policy uncertainty,
Oh, no.
you know?
That's a big one.
Yeah, increasing protectionist measures
I
and
know.
trade wars could really mess things up
Yeah, they can really disrupt things.
and hurt economic growth.
Trade is a vital engine of economic growth and prosperity.
Right.
But when countries start putting up barriers to trade,
Yeah.
creates inefficiencies,
Yeah.
drives up prices,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately harms everyone involved.
It's like shooting yourself in the foot,
Exactly.
economically speaking.
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
And all of these risks are made worse
Yeah.
by the high levels of debt
Okay.
that many countries are carrying.
Right.
When governments have to spend more on servicing their debt,
Yeah.
they have less money to invest in things like education,
Mhm.
infrastructure, all those areas that are crucial for long-term growth.
Like a double whammy.
It is a double whammy.
These risks not only threaten economic growth,
Yeah,
but they also make it harder for countries to tackle those underlying problems,
right.
like the labor shortages we were just talking about.
It's a very complicated web of interconnected challenges.
It sounds like it.
It is.
And that's why, smart
Yeah,
and careful policymaking is so important.
absolutely
Crucial. Governments and central banks need to be
Yeah,
proactive,
proactive,
adaptable,
adaptable,
working together
working together.
to respond to these challenges effectively.
They have to.
Yeah.
And they need to think long-term,
Right.
invest in people,
Okay.
and create the conditions for sustainable and inclusive growth.
So it's not just about putting out fires.
No.
It's about building something better.
It's about building for the future.
Yeah. Okay, so let's not end on a completely negative note.
Yeah.
There are also opportunities out there.
Oh, absolutely.
New technologies,
Yeah.
new industries,
New ways of working.
new ways of working.
Yeah, these can all be drivers of positive change.
So how do we make sure that those opportunities are realized?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And that's something we're going to explore in part 3.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the global economic outlook. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
We dug into those challenges.
Yeah.
That mix of resilient growth, but those cautious consumers,
Mm-hmm.
those persistent labor shortages.
Right.
And we even touched on some pretty serious risks,
We did.
like geopolitical tensions and that energy uncertainty.
Yeah, those are big ones.
Yeah. But now it's time to shift gears a little bit
I think so.
and focus on something a bit more positive.
Okay. I like it.
What about the opportunities out there?
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the challenges.
Yeah.
But, as we've talked about, there are also these immense opportunities for positive change.
Right.
The OECD report, while acknowledging the risks,
Yeah.
also highlights the potential for this transformative growth.
Okay.
But, it's not just going to happen on its own.
So no magic wand then.
No magic wand, unfortunately.
So what needs to happen then
Yeah.
to unlock this kind of transformative growth? The kind that's both sustainable.
And benefits everybody. Well, think of it like building a bridge to the future.
Okay.
You need solid foundations,
Okay.
strong materials, and a really clear vision of where you're headed.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
What are the foundations of this bridge to a better economic future?
Well, I think investing in people is absolutely fundamental.
Okay.
Education,
Mm-hmm.
training,
Yeah.
reskilling,
Right.
upskilling.
Okay.
These are the essential elements for creating a workforce that's ready for the future.
So closing that skills gap that we talked about.
Exactly. We've got to close that skills gap.
That's a key foundation.
It is.
But education takes time.
Yeah, it does.
What about actions that can have a more immediate impact?
Yeah, so in addition to that,
Okay.
creating the right conditions for businesses to thrive is also really essential.
Okay.
And this means things like fostering healthy competition, reducing unnecessary bureaucracy,
Okay.
ensuring a stable and predictable policy environment.
So basically making it easier for businesses to do what they do best.
Yeah.
Create jobs.
Exactly.
Drive economic growth.
That's what we want.
Okay.
And this includes supporting entrepreneurship and innovation.
Yeah.
Small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of so many economies,
Right.
and their growth and development is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so I can see this bridge starting to come together now.
Go
We've
on.
got the foundations,
Yeah.
investing in people, creating that business-friendly environment.
Right.
What about those strong materials we need?
Yeah.
What will make this bridge really resilient?
I think this is where technology really comes in.
Okay.
Think about all the incredible advances
Yeah.
that are happening in fields like artificial intelligence,
Okay.
robotics,
Yeah.
biotechnology,
Mm.
renewable energy.
Yeah, these are big ones.
They're huge. And these aren't just, trendy buzzwords.
Right.
These things have the potential to completely revolutionize entire industries, create tons of new jobs,
Wow.
and help us solve some of the world's most pressing problems.
It's like upgrading our construction materials from wood and stone
Aha! I like it.
to super strong alloys
Yeah,
and self-healing concrete.
exactly. But like any powerful tool,
Yeah.
technology can be used for good or for bad.
That's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword.
So we need to make sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone,
Absolutely.
not just a select few.
It has to benefit society as a whole.
Right. So we need guardrails,
Yeah.
ethical frameworks, guidelines,
Guideline.
things to make sure that we're using these powerful technologies responsibly
Yes.
and that we're not creating a bunch of unintended consequences.
We have to think about the long-term implications.
Yeah.
And that actually leads us to that clear vision part
Okay.
of the bridge analogy.
Right. So we need a shared understanding
Yeah.
of the kind of future we want to build. The
Exactly.
future that's not just prosperous, but it's also sustainable.
Sustainable,
Equitable.
and inclusive.
We want a future that works for everyone.
So we're not just building any bridge.
Right.
We're building one that leads to a better place.
A better world
Yeah, for everyone.
for everyone.
And that requires a real change in how we think about economic development.
It does.
Right. We need to move away from that short-term thinking
Right.
and really embrace a more long-term, holistic approach.
Think about the big picture.
Yeah, think about the needs of future generations,
Yes.
not just next quarter's profits.
Exactly. And this means tackling climate change head on,
Okay.
reducing inequality, and making sure everyone has the opportunity to actually reach their full potential.
Okay, so we've got all the key elements here.
Right.
Investing in people,
Yes.
creating that business-friendly environment,
Mm-hmm.
using technology responsibly,
Responsibly.
and maintaining that focus on a shared vision
Right.
for a better future.
For a better future.
But how do we actually translate all this?
Into concrete action.
That's the key question, right?
Yeah. What can governments, businesses
In individuals.
actually do to make this happen?
Well, it requires a multi-pronged approach, for sure. Governments have a really crucial role to play
Great.
in setting the stage,
Right.
creating those right policy frameworks, and investing in public goods.
Like,
Education.
okay,
Yeah,
infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
So they're like the architects and the engineers
I like that.
of this bridge,
Yeah.
making sure the design is sound. We're using high quality materials.
Perfect analogy.
Okay, and then businesses are responsible for
Yeah.
innovating,
Innovating.
investing in their workforce,
Absolutely.
adopting sustainable practices.
All of that.
So they're the ones on the ground actually building the bridge.
They're the builders.
All right, so where do individuals fit into all of this?
Yeah. Good question.
What can we do?
Well, we are both the beneficiaries and the builders of this bridge. We need to be active citizens,
Okay.
demanding responsible policies from our leaders, supporting businesses that align with our values,
Okay.
and investing in our own education and development.
So we're not just passengers.
Right.
We're actively participating in the construction of this bridge.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, to a better future.
Do a better future.
That's a really inspiring way to kind of wrap up our deep dive,
It is exciting.
into the global economic outlook.
Yeah.
We started with all the data and trends.
The numbers.
Yeah, the numbers.
Yeah.
Explored the challenges and the risks.
The risks are real.
The risks are real.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we've landed on, I think, a message of hope
Yeah, I think so too.
and agency.
Yeah. The future is not preordained.
Right.
It's something we build together.
We build it to.
One decision, one investment,
Yeah,
one action at a time.
that's a great way to put it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, this has been great.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed exploring these complex but fascinating topics with you.
Me too.
And to all of our listeners out there,
Yes.
thank you for joining us for another deep dive.
We'll see you next time.